to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters, and we've got a little announcement. Yep, 50,000 subscribers. Finally hit it overnight last night. Thank you to those of you in the chat who've already celebrated with us. Thank you very much. Ross, quite an achievement, mate. When you think about it, we only started this in lockdown, and that's a bit mental, really. We're only a couple of thousand away from hitting the St James's Park capacity now.
Well, that should be the next target, Steve. No, fantastic achievement. Well done to you and everybody connected with the show. I think it shows the power of what you guys do and what everybody does, and the loyalty that Newcastle United fans have. So no, great achievement. Well done, everybody.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks very much to everybody who subscribes. Thanks to the mods, and thanks most importantly to everybody as well who comes on the show, including you, Ross. And that's what we're going to do. Get ready to talk about Newcastle United like we do for an hour each day. And let's look back first of all just on the game of the weekend. The unbeaten run came to an end against an improving Liverpool team, bit like a wounded animal. Liverpool, I think, at the moment, they're not used to getting beat week in, week out, and conceding goals. But signs there that Liverpool could make a little bit of a late charge, and I think probably we should give Liverpool a bit more credit from the weekend. I've listened to a lot of opinions over the last 48 hours on different shows, and Liverpool, they're a top team, not just in this country, but in the world. And from our perspective, there was no shame losing a game 2-0 at home, especially with 10 men, Ross.
No, I think the unbeaten run was going to come to an end at some point. Nobody realistically thought Newcastle were going to go through the rest of the season without losing a game. It's a shame in a sense that it came in this game against Liverpool, who are going to be breathing down Newcastle's neck very, very shortly, I'm sure, in terms of the top 5, top 6, top 4, whatever you want to call it. And the fact, obviously, that Newcastle were after a little bit of revenge after the game at Anfield earlier in the season. So, and the third point, I suppose, is obviously the build up to the big game on Sunday. You didn't want to really be going into that with a defeat behind you. You'd rather be going into it in top form, full of confidence, full of vim and vigor and purpose and belief. So that was a little bit of a setback as well. But I agree with you, Steve. I thought Liverpool were decent. They are going to have, I think, a strong second half to the season. The front three were electric. The pace of Salah, of Nunez, of Gakpo, the movement was really good. They showed why those three are top quality players. Nunez, 80 million. I know he's had his critics, but he's a real threat. He's a real handful. Salah's arguably been the best, most consistent forward in Europe over the last 2 or 3 years. And Gakpo is obviously an emerging talent as well. So, and I agree in the sense that there was no kind of shame in losing to Liverpool. And the performance that Newcastle actually put in once they went down to 10 men, it was probably the big positive that came out of the game. They arguably played better with 10 men against a strong team like Liverpool than they did with 11 men against West Ham and against Bournemouth. So if we're looking for positives, there's definitely a few to take there. It was just a shame that the run had to end against Liverpool and in the week preceding the cup final.
Yeah, I mean, it was, we're backs against the wall. The 2 goals as well. I mean, we're looking hopefully at VAR. We're, praying for an offside or a handball, but it was just impossible. And then the Nick Pope situation. I mean, we'd seen it a few minutes earlier where he'd come out of his area, anticipated a ball coming through, managed to hit it with his head. tried the same again on the opposite side of the pitch towards the Melbourne stand, and unfortunately came a cropper. And I think we all realised then that was the end of Nick Pope's chances of playing in the Carabao Cup final.
It was just incredible, Steve. It was just an incredible sort of 12, 15 minutes, whatever it was. Defensively, I thought Newcastle looked very, very shaky in that period. They looked, the defensive solidity that we've come to expect from Newcastle this season, and that's brought them this fantastic defensive record. You could drive a bus in between the centre halves and the fullbacks at times on Saturday evening, which was disappointing. And the 2 goals were avoidable. I don't think Kieran Trippier had his best day in a black and white shirt. He's been fantastic and outstanding since he came to the club. I thought he was at fault for both goals, but the whole defence weren't particularly solid neither. And yes, Newcastle could have scored a couple of goals at the other end, but Liverpool could have had 3 or 4 themselves. So that was disappointing and slightly worrying at that start of the game, in the way that Liverpool were able to cut Newcastle open quite easily through the middle and through the channels. And then the Nick Pope thing, it's just a complete head scratcher. He's had a real brain fade, hasn't he? He's come. He should have cleared it with his foot. He should have, even if he missed it, he shouldn't have obviously handled it. It's just a real moment of madness, and it's a real shame for Nick Pope, because he's arguably been Newcastle's best player this season, and to miss out on a cup final because of that one mistake, when he's done so much, he's done as much as anybody to get Newcastle to the final with his penalty heroics against Palace in the shootout. His one-on-one save against Adam Armstrong in the semi-final second leg when it was at a crucial stage, and his all-round performances. To miss out on that, it was a real shame for him, and it's a moment that he'll probably be playing over and over in his mind over the next week, over the next month, over the potentially the rest of his career. Why did he do it? Why didn't he? Why did he have that kind of rush of blood? These things happen in football, but I said on Twitter on Saturday night, it's epic Newcastle, isn't it? It's if any club can take you from the highs to the lows in one fell swoop, it's Newcastle. Just when you think that these things are behind the club, they show a almost reassuring ability to completely baffle and just dumbfound you. It was an incredible 15 minutes. And let's just hope that's the 15 minutes of madness out of the way, and the rest of the week can be plain sailing. We can take a really strong positive performance into Sunday.
Ian Toon Trader says, good morning, Steve and Ross. Hope you're well. Can't see it happening, but there's people saying we may appeal against Nick Pope's red card. I thought this had to be done in 48 hours. Is there any news on this?
There won't be an appeal. No appeal. I can't see any. If we're all being honest, it was a red card. It was it's as blatant a red card as you're going to get. So I don't think there's going to be an appeal. I haven't heard that there's going to be one. And even if they did, I don't think it would be successful. If anything, they might add a game or two on for it being frivolous. So unfortunately, that's the rules. The rules are that if Joe Linton had picked up another yellow card on Saturday and got a 10 game, he would have had a 2-game ban in the Premier League, not in the Carabao Cup. He would have been fine in the Carabao Cup. It was only the red cards. It is a bit of a nonsense, but them's the rules. Everybody knew what the rules were before kickoff, and it's just unfortunate for Nick Pope, but he's out of that game.
Yeah. Does Ross think Pope's howler on Saturday in front of Gareth Southgate will have finally confirmed Southgate's opinion that Pickford is his number 1 and maybe Ramsdale is his number 2 now?
Well, this is a really good question, and I had a little bit of debate with a pal over the weekend around Nick Pope. Now, I'm a massive fan of Nick Pope. I think the performances that he's put in this season, as I've touched on there, have been outstanding. He's arguably been Newcastle's best player this season, along with maybe Sven Botman, Fabian Schär and one or two others who have been really consistent as well. But his consistency, what he's brought to the team is fantastic for a £10 million signing in the summer. It's an absolute snip. Unfortunately for Nick Pope, though, he's made probably 2 or 3 high-profile errors in really high-profile games now. So the Liverpool one on Saturday was a moment of madness. Call it what you want, but it was a major error in a high-pressure game, high-stakes game in front of people who are watching, in front. The last game before the cup final. He did the same when he got his England chance earlier in the season before the World Cup, and he played against Italy and Germany and made a couple of errors in both those games that cost England a win against Germany in particular. That's not to say that he's a bad goalkeeper. He's not. He's an absolutely outstanding goalkeeper. But when it comes to these high pressure moments, these big games when you need reliability, he just seems to have just dropped the ball literally in some cases a couple of times, which is, I don't know if that'll influence Gareth Southgate's thinking. I think he always thinks that. I think Jordan Pickford's always been his number one and will continue to be so, because he's never let England really down on the big stage. But when Nick Pope's had these couple of opportunities to really impress Gareth Southgate, unfortunately, he hasn't been able to take them.
Yeah, ASM got a bit of praise again at the weekend, and a lot of people feeling that he was our best player. John Askew says, morning all, can Maxi produce that sort of performance in consecutive games? If he can, the final could be fruitful. Roger Cook says, Ross, do you think this is a perfect for Maxi, wing or the middle? Asking which position you would play. I mean, he did surprise us a little bit anyhow. We gave Anderson his first start in a big game at St James's Park. Unfortunate for the young lad, because he had to come off as a make weight with the sending off of Nick Pope. But ASM did well. I felt put a lot of effort in. Track back. We certainly had Liverpool on the back foot at times. Just no end product, unfortunately. But maybe he's keeping it all for the final. But thoughts on ASM, mate?
Yeah, I thought he was again one of the bright sparks on Saturday. I thought some of his forward play was outstanding. He looked like he was back to his best in the sense of being really aggressive and positive when he had the ball, taking players on, driving at defences, causing them all sorts of problems. Was unlucky not to get a goal himself, or at least an assist as well. So I thought he was really positive. I'm probably gonna say something that's maybe a little bit controversial here, but I don't know if I still don't know if he's guaranteed a start at Wembley, and I'll tell you why. I think if Joe Willock is fit, I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie Howe reverts back to the formation and the team that has served Newcastle very, very well on that left-hand side with Dan Burn, Joe Linton, and Joe Willock playing as that trio on that left-hand side. Joe Linton and Joe Willock have got a really good understanding and relationship there, where when one pushes into that left-hand side of the attack, the other drops into the midfield and they swap it over. When one goes, one stays. Sometimes Joe Linton looks like he's the left forward. Sometimes it looks like it's Willock, and they swap it over. So for all, he was probably Newcastle's best outfield player on Saturday. Like I say, if Joe Willock's fit, does he start? Does Eddie Howe go back to that formation, that system that has served Newcastle so well, served him so well, those partnerships and relationships? I don't know. I'll caveat that by saying I'd be very surprised if Joe Willock is 100% fit, mind. But Eddie Howe did give him a little bit of a window of opportunity when he spoke last week. Whether he's playing his cards close to his chest again, I don't know. I'd be surprised if Willock was fit, but if he is, again, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts ahead of St. Maximin.
Yeah, well, if there's a time for him to perform, then it's Wembley. Let's hope, at some point when he does get on, whether he starts or whether he comes on as a sub, he has that opportunity to shine. Geordie Toon for Life, I am getting a bit annoyed about this as well, mate, to be honest. Bloody Sky having Man U versus Newcastle, no United. Sky, on Sky, we were United before Man U. Yeah, it is annoying that, Ross, isn't it?
It is. It's something that winds, does wind fans up. It's wound me up in the past as well. I'll be honest. So yeah, I think if you call them Manchester United, then it's Newcastle United as well. So I know why they do it. They do it because obviously it's to differentiate between United and City and the two Manchester clubs. But yeah, there's more than one United. So let's get it right, Sky.
Yeah, let's get it right. I've just posted Roger Cook's blog in the chat. If anybody wants to have a look at that, he talks about why he won't be going to Wembley this week and gives you an insight into MS. So please give it a read. I had a read of it there, Roger, and I have shared it in the chat. So anybody wants to have a look at it, please take your time after the show to have a look. Okay, get back to the points here. John Norton says Gordon and Dubravka are cup tied, brought in before transfer windows existed. Is being cup tied old-fashioned, and should it be scrapped, Ross?
No, I don't think it should be scrapped. I don't think it's old-fashioned. I don't think it should be scrapped. It's them's the rules. I think if you're playing against, if you're playing in a cup competition, then you shouldn't be able to then just jump and play for another team in the same cup competition. So I don't think it is. I don't think it is old-fashioned, and I don't think it should be scrapped. What I will say though is I think look, Newcastle haven't made many errors in the transfer window and the transfer market since they came in. But and look, there's a couple of freak kind of scenarios here with the Nick Pope thing, but they knew that Dubravka was cup tied. They knew they were in a cup final. They knew that Anthony Gordon was cup tied. And still brought them in January. Newcastle let go 3 players in John Joe Shelby, Chris Wood, and Carl Darlow, who were all eligible for the Carabao Cup. They brought in 3 players, 2 of whom were cup tied. So it's a little bit of a misstep for me. All it needed was Nick Pope to get injured, and it would have been in the same situation with Loris Karius having to start, or Mark Gillespie on the bench or whatever. So I just felt it was a mistake. I said it at the time. I thought Newcastle were leaving themselves a little bit light and actually weakened the squad a bit in January rather than strengthened it. Unfortunately, the Bruno suspension and then the Nick Pope suspensions come at really bad times and left Newcastle a little bit short in a couple of key areas. Anthony Gordon, we spent 45 million on him and he still hasn't started a game. He's obviously being eased in, but yeah, it just frustrates us a little bit. But the club haven't made many errors, haven't made many missteps. This one was a little error for me, but hindsight's a wonderful thing at the same time.
Yeah, it certainly is. And lots of comments coming in, so we'll go to this one. Tom Dixon says, who do you think will start on Sunday? Will he start Wilson or Isak? And I guess the question is which goalkeeper he's going to start as well. We all presume he's going to go with Karius, but is he going to go with the local lad Gillespie? I mean, first off, Wilson or Isak?
I think that, and this is just my opinion, just my guess, I think he will start Callum Wilson on Sunday. I think if Callum Wilson is fit, and he looked fit when he came on Saturday for half an hour, I think that Eddie, going back to similar to what I've said about Joe Willock, I think he wants to. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes with what he trusts, what he knows, what he the players that have got Newcastle into this position that have played the most games in the system and fitting into the system and understand what he wants. So I think that he would, if all things are being well and everybody comes through fit, I think Callum Wilson will start ahead of Alexander Isak. I wouldn't be upset either way. I think they're both very good players with different qualities, but that's just my opinion. I think you go with Wilson.
And what about the goalkeeping situation? Karius, is it a shoe-in?
I think it's a shoe-in. Yeah, I really do think it's a shoe-in. I don't see Gillespie playing at all. He's been nowhere near the first team. He's been nowhere near the squad. They wouldn't have when Nick Pope. When Newcastle needed to sign Loris Karius earlier in the season, when there was the injury issues and whatever, with Carl Darlow, they still had three goalkeepers there. Mark Gillespie was still there, and they thought, no, actually, we don't trust him. We want to bring in Loris Karius, who hadn't played in a year and a half, 2 years. So I don't see them now thinking Gillespie's a better bet than Karius. I think he's absolutely nailed on to start. And what a story that is as well, Steve. What a story, again, only Newcastle, where, richest club in the world theoretically, and you're having to play a guy who you signed out of contract outside of the transfer window, who hasn't played a game for 2 years. You're having to play him in your biggest game for 20 years or so. So what a story. I think it could go one or two ways. He could produce the game of his life and be a real redemption story after his nightmare in the Champions League final, or he could just be rusty, really, really rusty, and it might be a game too much for him. So we all hope that he has a great game, a great debut. But what a game to make your first appearance in for Newcastle.
Would you go? I mean, for me, right? I know people keep saying 4-4-2 is outdated. I mean, you played me a few times on a Sunday, and I always went 4-4-2. It's a system I've always loved. But ultimately, Isak on his own and Wilson on his own doesn't get us goals. It doesn't get us goals, and I just, why not go for it on Sunday? Stick the two of them up front. Go for it. Play your best players. And there's signs there that Wilson and Isak can play together. Bruno's going to be back in the middle. Go 4-4-2, man. Surprise everybody.
Yeah, it worked against was it Palace, wasn't it, in the league? Yeah. When they came on and played together last 20-25 minutes. I agree to it in the sense that, look, Newcastle are really struggling for goals. What is it, 3-7, something like that, and they haven't scored more than one goal in a league game since Boxing Day. You can make what you want out of stats, but we all know that Newcastle have been struggling badly in front of goal in terms of being clinical, in terms of taking the chances, creating them as well as creating them has been okay, but it's just taking those chances. So maybe they do need to change things up. Maybe they do need to be really positive. I can certainly see if it gets into the last 20-25 minutes and they need a goal, I can see them playing Wilson and Isak up front again together as one off the bench coming in to form a bit more of a two-pronged or attack through the middle. But I don't see Eddie Howe changing his formation now. I don't see him changing it just before a cup final. I think he'd stick with his 4-3-3. And that'll mean one of them will be starting the game on the bench.
Yeah, what do people in the chat think? Would you go 4-4-2? Is it too much of a radical change to go for in a cup final when you've not played that formation at all? The footballers, they've got to be able to adapt. Go for it. The two of them. I just think we're too predictable. I go with Isak, but don't think Eddie will, as Ross says Ian. Goalkeeper situation, Les says there was a stark contrast between Karius and Gillespie in the friendly. Karius looked solid, in my opinion. Of course, won the Saudi Cup with Karius in goal. How's the training ground coming on? Date of completion, lads, says Michael. Any updates on the training ground, Ross?
Not that I've heard, to be honest. I think it's just a gradual process, and they're looking at completing stages of it, and the next stage will be complete in the summer, I think, ready for pre-season. But I've not heard any more, if I'm being honest.
Northumberland Geordie says, would get overrun in midfield with just 2 in there against Casemiro, etc. Geordie Toombalay says, we played 4-3-2 for 70 minutes. It was our best performance in the last 6 games. Darren Lee says, it would be good to see Bruno back. It will be like a new signing. Derek says, I'd play Wilson over Isak as Wilson gives them no time to pass from the back. Definitely changed when Wilson came on, I've got to be honest. I'm not saying, well, he's actually just not a centre forward, and he won't play with his back to goal. We've got to find a way of bringing him in, and I think he's a winger. He looks certainly more comfortable out there, and he drifts out there. Michael says, if we win and Karius has a good game, he should be number 2. Troll says, ASM with both Isak and Wilson can be really dangerous. He has chemistry with both of them, to be fair. And Roger says, got to be and will be Karius. I'll eat my hat if it is not. And Tom says, I would give 4-4-2 formation a go. Then if it doesn't work, we can go back to the normal formation. And Troll says, if Gillespie starts, I'll be stunned. And I think it'll be a big mistake. If by any chance, Steve, it'll be 4-2-3-1. I think that's after Wembley. Maybe after the cup final, you mean? Bloody typical. Wood scores for Forest versus Man City. Yeah, that didn't escape our glare at the weekend. And John says, in view of the drop-off in form, will the next transfer window be our most significant to date? We need a goal scorer and a bit more creativity. Look, it's transfer window by transfer window, Ross, isn't it? Most significant to date. They'll certainly be pushing for that midfielder that they didn't get, and I would imagine they will look for a forward.
I think so, 100%. Yeah, I think they've obviously the business in January. Look, I've had a little moan about it there, but the business in January was clearly with one eye on the summer transfer business. They wanted to try to balance the books a little bit by getting some money in for Chris Wood, by getting some money in wage bills off the salary wage bill with John Joe Shelby going to Forest and obviously not triggering a new contract, which they clearly didn't want to do. So there were some decisions made there with financial decisions for me, not necessarily football decisions. I don't think, Eddie Howe didn't want John Joe Shelby to leave. He didn't want Chris Wood to leave, but he understood that was the decision made from a financial situation. And that was to give them a little bit more wiggle room in terms of the summer transfer window and FFP. So I do think it'll be another big window, but each window is the biggest yet, isn't it? It just rolls on. Every transfer window is going to be huge for Newcastle over the next 2 or 3 years because of the situation that the club's in after the takeover, the money that they've got, the ambition that the club's got. Also, the kind of the weight of expectation now as well. Everybody's going to be looking to see what they can do and how they can get around FFP and how can they improve the squad, which has come on leaps and bounds. Let's not forget, we can be a little bit negative over what's happened over the last 2 or 3 weeks, but if you'd said at the start of the season, you get into the end of February, you're 5th in the table and you're in the Carabao Cup final, snap your hands off.
Exactly. Tom Dixon, it's better than Felon Flower Show fields. He says, what is the pitch like at Wembley? Is it in good condition? Yes, mate. It'll be immaculate, mate. And it's a big old pitch. That's one thing to take into consideration. It's a lot bigger than the pitches you play on in the Premier League, and that will test players. Like the idea of 4-4-2, we're going to have to try something slightly different given both teams' recent form. Stephen Kennedy says we need a Demba Ba type forward, strong and pacey. I feel like we need a Loic Remy, mate. A Loic Remy, that would be my kind of player. If we're going to go 4-3-1-2, we need another striker, says Trolls. Tom Dixon says, would you take Kieran Tierney in the summer? Now, this is somebody that Stu Penman had mentioned a few months back, and I see he's been linked now with Newcastle. Injury prone, though.
He is. He's very injury prone. That would be my big concern with him. Hell of a player. Really, really good left back. Can play centre half as well. Really, really talented player. But he's just his injury record is a real concern and might put people off, especially if you're being quoted 30 million or whatever you're being quoted. But what a player he potentially can be. He is a very good player now, but if he could stay injury fit and get a real solid run of games, I think he could be absolutely outstanding.
Yeah, definitely could be. Son of THC says, like I said, not signing a Leandro Trossard was our biggest mistake. It was obvious. You said wait and see, Steve. Now you're saying I was right. I'm saying break the bank for Rashford. I said wait and see because there was too much speculation, son of THC, with the transfer window, as there always is with Newcastle. And Newcastle chose not to sign a centre midfielder and chose to let one go. Wait till the end of the season and let's see where we finish up and what we end up with. If we win the Carabao Cup and we finish in a Champions League place, then you say they made the right decision. If we end up finishing 6th, 7th, don't win the Carabao Cup, is it a disastrous season? No, it's better than last season, but it'll be disappointing after being in the Champions League spots for half a season, having an unbeaten run of 17 games and getting to the final. It will feel disappointing. That's where we're at now. It's a strange turnaround at Newcastle United. Okay, we're halfway through the show. Now time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, starting with Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from mrvickies.co.uk, email them at info@mrvickies.co.uk, or call them on 01768 210 102. Why not try some new beers at Blowhole Brewery? You can find them at blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks also to United Group Travel, UK Coach Holidays based in Morpeth. Telephone 01670 362 460 or mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls and looking after you on your tour. Thanks also to 3 Properties. They specialise in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the North East. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the last 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeast property and phil.reed_northeast property, or email phil@3property.co.uk if you're interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. Thanks to Media Arts for all the videos. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button underneath this video today. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to your social media. If you're out and about, you can catch us as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. If you want to join the channel, click join and you'll find out our membership packages down there. Very easy to do. Or if you want to become a cult member, £25 a month, go to nufcmatters.com and look for membership pack, or put your smartphone over the QR code and it will take you straight there. Anyone who subscribes to the channel will get a free car sticker. To get your car sticker, simply email john@nufcmatters.com. Got a few events coming up over the next few weeks. Steve Howie, Friday the 24th of February at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets available for £29 on voucher. An evening with Nobby Solano, Saturday the 25th of March. Tickets £15. Book at nufcmatters.com. Nobby Solano is also at Felling Cricket Club on Good Friday the 7th of April at 4 o'clock. Tickets are £10 and available behind the bar. And an evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday the 20th of April. That's at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. We've also got a vast array of t-shirts available at the website. If you want your special Wembley t-shirt, you can go to nufcmatters.com and get one now while stocks last. I've just put something in the chat. It's the interactive map. Tell us about this, Ross.
Yeah, so we've set up an interactive map for Newcastle fans all over the world to send them messages of good luck and support in Eddie Howe and the players. You just got to click on the map, put your message in, tell us where you're from, and we'll put it on there. I think already we've got about 450 messages, all ranging from all over the place: Taiwan, Antigua, Australia, New Zealand, America, all over the world, as well as obviously, if you're in the Northeast, tell us whereabouts you are in the Northeast. If there's a few from my neck of the woods, there's a few from your neck of the woods, Steve. All over Europe and the world, people are sending their good luck messages into Eddie Howe and the boys. We'll collate the best of them and use them in a piece for the Chronicle. Just out of just an FYI sort of thing, we're also doing a similar one for the Manchester Evening News, and they've only got about 80 or 90 responses on, whereas Newcastle's got 450, I think, in a minute. So let's hope that success rate and that win ratio continues into Sunday's game as well.
Yeah, let's hope so. Plenty of comments coming in, as always. Will the fact that Manchester United play Barcelona on Thursday influence the final? There's a feeling that it might help us, Ross. Manchester United, of course, 2-2 at Barcelona, do have that big game on Thursday. Will it play a part?
Not for me, no. Unless the only way that it could potentially have an influence is if one of the Man United players picks up an injury. And you never wish injuries on anybody, on players, but I think that's potentially the only way that it would influence. I don't see fatigue or lack of preparation or anything else like that being a factor. What you've got with Man United, unfortunately, from a Newcastle perspective, is they've got a lot of momentum, they've got a lot of good form, got a lot of big name players who are used to playing big games every 3 or 4 days. A massive game in the Camp Nou. Oh no, it's at Old Trafford, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it's at Old Trafford. Yeah,
it's at Old Trafford. But a massive game against Barca in a big European night, and then 3 or 4 days later playing a cup final. I don't think the lack of preparation or any fatigue or anything will be a problem. The only thing would potentially be knocks, injuries, niggles, anything else like that, where it is a quick turnaround. But you look at United squad, they've got World Cup winners in there. They've got players who've won UEFA Cups and European trophies. They've got Champions League winners in there. They've got players who are used to handling big occasions and big games coming thick and fast. So I don't think it'll be too much of a distraction for them.
Okay, we should have spent the money on Maddison to keep us top 4, get the money back when we get Champions League. It's not as easy as that too in 2020, though. There's, the club didn't really want to sell him. Did the player want to come? A lot of it's media speculation, and that's what we've got to remember. Maddison and Thuram will be good signings in the summer. There would be, but it's Newcastle may decide that they want somebody different. John Askew says hopefully there will be a few Saudi flags in there Sunday. Without their back in Wembley would be a pipe dream. I would break the bank for Harry Kane, says Tom Dixon. And Northumberland Geordie says the disappointment is that we've had plenty of chances to really pull clear of Tottenham and Liverpool the last few weeks. That might be the difference between 5th, 6th and 7th place. Ian Toon Trader says, how many new players do you think we need in the summer if we're to challenge in Europe? I think we need 6, but I can't see this happening. How many players would you bring in?
Well, I think 5 or 6, to be honest. But I know what Ian's saying there is that if you're going to bring in the type of quality players that Newcastle are looking at these days, and because of the cost of players, the price is escalating, and Newcastle now being so much more high profile, that they can't probably go and pinch a player for 8 or 10 million or snap up a real bargain, because there will be a kind of Newcastle tax put on players, unfortunately, because that's just the way it is when you've got or you're perceived to have a bit of money to throw around. So I think 5 or 6 is probably right. Is probably what is needed, but it might have to be something that's a little bit more incremental in terms of bringing in 2 or 3 that'll improve the squad each window, and kind of building gradually rather than a kind of huge overhaul. But I think you look at the squad, and you look at the squad that's going to be travelling down to Wembley on Saturday, and bar maybe 1 or 2. I think we can probably all pick the starting 11. Like I say, there might be 1 or 2 areas will Joe Willock play? Is it Wilson or Almiron? Wilson or Isaac? Sorry. other than that, it pretty much nailed on. And then you look at the bench, and unfortunately, there's not real strength on the bench. There's still a lot of players there who are good, solid professionals who've been fantastic servants to Newcastle, but they're not going to win you loads and loads of cup finals or get you into Europe on a regular basis. We've seen that once you've had to scratch that beyond that first kind of 13, 14, 15, then it's a little bit light. So they do need 5 or 6 for me. But whether they can afford to bring 5 or 6 top quality players in the summer is open to debate.
Yep, lots of comments coming in. Geordie Toonverlife's now written to Sky asking them to change the name and to call us Newcastle United. He is not a happy chappy at all. Maybe a few other people tweeting across to them may jog them on a little bit and get things changed. Is Sunday a free hit? We've reached Wembley at the first time of asking in the first full season of our revolution. The future's lightning bright regardless of the result. Is it a free hit? Don't think the players will be
not for me. It's not. No, not for me. It's not. These opportunities. Yes, look, we all hope that this is a new era, a new dawn, and going to be a sustained period of challenging for titles and honours and cups and everything else like that at Newcastle. But at the same time, we have to be realistic, and sometimes these things don't come around very often. These things don't. You don't get into cup finals every year. Most teams, obviously Man City and Man United and Liverpool and Arsenal, perhaps they do most years, but you've got to take these opportunities when they come up. It's in the late 90s or mid 90s, we all thought Newcastle were going to be challenging for every cup and every trophy, for a period of time, for a long period of time. We haven't been in a cup final since 1999, so you've got to take these opportunities when they come. So absolutely not a free hit for me, no.
Lots of people paying tribute, of course, at the weekend to Christian Atsu. Tragic circumstances in the Turkey earthquake, Ross.
It was. We all feared the worst, hoped for the best, but feared the worst, and that was sadly confirmed at the weekend. I wasn't fortunate enough to ever speak to Christian Atsu, but I know a lot of my colleagues did interview him on countless occasions and spoke to him after games and press conferences around the training ground, that sort of thing. And to a man, everybody has said what a fantastic, genuine bloke he was. Take away the fact that he was obviously a very talented footballer who played at the top level. The fact that he came across as such a warm, generous, humble person, did a lot of work for the community and for charities, both here and overseas as well. It's a real tragedy. Another footballer, another ex-Newcastle player, but just a genuine bloke taken far too early in life again.
A lot of people talking about the cameras that are in the dressing room at the minute. Can that be a distraction, do you think? Some people worried about how our season might end, and it could be one of those horrendous endings where Newcastle finish with nothing and drop out the European places, etc., which other people would laugh at. I mean, can that be a distraction?
I don't know. I don't know if it can. I really don't know, Steve. I'm not sure on this one because, you when you hear people and you speak to people, I've spoken to a couple of people around the Sunderland Netflix documentary in the past who said it got to a stage where you just forgot that the cameras were there almost, it became, you just didn't realise that they were there. You forgot that they were there. So, but at times it could be a distraction on certain elements. So I think there's probably a bit of both. I'm fairly certain that the players and the management staff and the coaching team, if you give them the option, they would not want any cameras around the dressing room or around the internal workings of the club. But that's, this is we're in 2023 now. It's par for the course, and sometimes money talks, and we've seen that these cameras have followed around other clubs, Spurs, Arsenal, Man City, Sunderland, like I say, and it's just part of the world now. But yeah, I think you can't. I would hate for it to be used as an excuse. That's the only thing I would say. I would hate for people to start pointing fingers at excuses for Newcastle's little dip in form when And I'm sure the players and the management staff won't be doing that or aren't doing that. It's just that Newcastle are in a little bit of a blip at the minute, but that was always going to happen at some point in the season.
Yeah, Steve Middleman says, I think we need to get in front because of our weak bench. Man United get stronger as the game develops. Jody Toombalay says, is retrospective action now void because we have VAR? The more you look at the Sabitzer challenge, Faze is lucky that his leg isn't broken. Yeah, a lot of talk about that as well, wasn't there? The this challenge here, Ross, where Bruno, of course, 3-match suspension for that, but Sabitzer's challenge. I mean, it's inconsistency, isn't it?
It is inconsistent. I'll be honest, I haven't seen the Sabitzer one other than that picture. I've seen that picture a couple of times. I've not seen it in real time or anything else like that. And I know sometimes, things can look worse on replays and on slow-mos and on pictures, but it looks really, really poor. And people that I've spoken to who have seen it in real time and without being slowed down have said it was a poor tackle as well. The ref obviously had a good look at it, and VAR had a good look at it, and that's the frustration, is the inconsistency, Steve. Like you say, you'd like to think that the same principles are applied to every game, every tackle, but that's what you're going to get with VAR. People thought VAR was going to come in and eradicate every mistake, but it's not, because it's still human interpretation. It's the human interpretation. It's not VAR's not the issue. It's the people who are implementing it, the people who were sitting in Stockley Park or wherever else ruling on it, which were just the same referees that were making mistakes and getting things right and getting things wrong previously. So, VAR can help and it's hope to eradicate some stuff, but it still comes down to human error and human interpretation.
Yeah, that's a good point as well from Mr. Anderson. He's more than likely get more money from doing the documentary than winning the League Cup, which is a bit sad, really. On VAR, son of THC gets his favourite phrase out again. Favouritism met by deception through perception. Studs at knee height is red. Simple as, in my opinion. Steve, is the rattle going to Wembley? It'll probably get confiscated to 2020. I daren't risk it, mate. I daren't risk it, but you never know. Sabitzer challenge didn't look any better in real time. Red card every day of the week. Cup final ref on that VAR, that game. Man, you. Steve Middleman says, you can see some fans in despair if we don't win the cup. Something it's life defining. We've gotten over past losses if we don't get it. And Geordie Toombalay says, Ross, in normal play, you can see the muscles in false leg movement. So it is forceful and the ref is 5 yards away. So, yeah, I mean, as you say, Ross hasn't really seen this particular challenge. But, it was a red all day. Another thing at Wembley, which we're supporting, we did a little video with some former Newcastle players. I make no apologies for playing this again. And we are supporting the 14th minute applause at Wembley this coming Sunday.
Hi everyone, my name's Lee Clark. Just want to make this video to get a very important message out there about the increasing and unfortunately in knife crime. Awful position to be in. If you've ever been a victim of knife crime or the family who's been a victim, because it doesn't just affect the person who has been involved in getting stabbed by a knife. It's the family members, the mums, the dads, the brothers, the sisters, the aunties, the uncles, the cousins, the friends. But it's also the person who commits that, their family suffer as well. And there's no place for it. If you're carrying a knife, you're carrying it for one reason, and that's to go and hurt someone deliberately. So I'm asking everybody out there, not to have those thoughts. There's other ways and means of, if you have a debate with somebody, a difference of an opinion, etc., to deal with that. And I'm talking to everybody here now, boys and girls, just to think about that when you're outside. If any of your friends or your family members are out carrying knives, just to give them that advice, to say, one, that they're going to go out and do something that they'll regret for the rest of their life, but it'll hurt their family and friends, but also the victim and their family and friends. So a strong message from me. There's no room for knife crime in our world today. So please can we use this to put an end to it. All the very best, Lee.
It's time to stamp out knife crime.
Liam O'Brien here. It's time to stamp out knife crime.
It's time to stamp out knife crime.
It's time to stamp out knife crime.
It's time to stamp out knife of crime.
It's time to stamp out knife crime.
Hi, this is Dan Jackson. It's time to stamp out knife crime.
Thanks very much to Media Arts for putting the video together. The family sent us this flyer over as well. This is their big flyer that will be handing out at Wembley. They've just been given permission. I've just seen on the Chronicles website before we came on air that they've been given permission to hand out the leaflets at Wembley, which is great news. A lot of support for them. Make sure you clap for Gordon on the 14th minute. Big campaign that, Ross. It's tragic that we're talking about this kind of thing on the show, but we really felt after I'd seen the family at St James's Park holding the banner up that we wanted to do something. So that's our contribution. Did you hear that, Ross?
Yeah, and it's a real worthy cause, Steve. You know, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate. Yes, we can hear you, mate.
Yeah, it's a real worthy cause. It's a real worthy cause, Steve. It's we all want knife crime stamped out. It's a tragic case, and hopefully the family can get some solace and some justice from the campaign.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Thank you, Roger. Says excellent video. Stamp out knife crime 100%. Rob says, well done all. I was stabbed 4 times for being a goth and shouting Super Gateshead in Edinburgh. Not nice at all. Son of THC says, fans of Green Street but missed the main phrase of the movie. Once you realise you are not made of glass, there is nothing to fear anymore. Carry a knife, 5 years, no ifs or buts, says Toon 2020. But thanks for everybody's support with the campaign. So, obviously, getting back to the cup final, it's just a great opportunity for fans to go down and sample it. Some people won't have been to Wembley before. Some, like me, will have been on the previous occasions, the 2 finals, the semi-final. It's a great opportunity just to take part in a cup final, isn't it, Ross?
It is that it becomes a weekend, doesn't it, Steve? It's not just about the 90 minutes on during the game. It's about the full build up, the whole weekend. You know, I've been fortunate enough to be down for a few times myself and sample that as a much younger man, unfortunately. But thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed a couple of days down in the capital and seeing some of the sights, but just sampling the atmosphere. And I think that'll be the same this weekend. You know, we all want Newcastle to win. We want to come away with the cup and haven't been victorious. But equally, let's just enjoy the weekend. I suppose a slight plea would be to fans just to make sure that they're respectful and that they behave themselves and don't go too daft in and around Trafalgar Square and Covent Garden. And if they are, just be respectful of the city itself and other people within the city, which I'm sure there will be. But you know what it's like sometimes when alcohol takes over and people get themselves a little bit excitable. We've seen it with fans of other clubs where some of the ways and behaviours haven't quite reflected particularly well on them. I hope there's none of that, and I hope everyone just goes down, has a really good time, really enjoys themselves, and hopefully comes back with the trophy as well, because it is a fantastic weekend for the city, for the region, and for the fans of Newcastle United.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about, potential, players playing, Wilson, Isak, etc. How do you think he's going to set up at the weekend, Ross?
So I've had a little think about this one, Steve, and I think looking at how Newcastle played in the second half against Liverpool, but also how they set the stall out in that first kind of 5 or 10 minutes, I expect Newcastle to be really, really aggressive from the outset. I think Eddie Howe will want to see Newcastle being front foot, press, loads of intensity, certainly in that first 10, 15, 20 minutes, which could be vital. Just in, we've talked about Man United coming off the back of playing Barcelona on Thursday. If there is any weariness or legginess in the United players' legs, then I think this could be a real opportunity for Newcastle to get a strong start, come out the blocks really quickly, be aggressive, press, and full of intensity. Newcastle have been at their best this season, I think, when they've had that intensity. They've had that physicality over other teams. Joe Linton uses physicality, Sean Longstaff, pressing and dominating, the back four being really aggressive with their defending as well, chasing down from the front. I think that'll be the tactics that regardless of the personnel that Eddie Howe will want to implement from the start, has been really kind of front foot. I don't think it will suit Newcastle to sit off and let Man United have the bulk of possession. I don't think it'll suit them that just to try and contain. It's a one-off game. It's a cup final. You want to leave everything out there. You don't want to be coming off the pitch with any regrets. For me, you've got to be ultra positive going into it. So I think that'll be the approach. I think there'll be a wariness though at the same time of the threats that Man United do have at their disposal. They've got pace to burn. Obviously, Marcus Rashford's the player that everybody's talking about, and the format he is in is incredible. And Kieran Trippier in particular is going to have his hands full, I think. But what I think Trippier will have is he'll probably have Sean Longstaff right in front of him, providing that little bit of protection on that side with Bruno coming into the centre of midfield, and it'll allow Longstaff to move back into that kind of right-hand side number 8 role, which I think will help hopefully cut off the supply into Rashford as well. But yeah, I just think it's a real one-off game. Eddie Howe will set the team out to be ultra positive, ultra competitive, real intensity from the first whistle, and try and blow Man United away in the first 15, 20 minutes.
A lot of people confident of a win. I think I've got to agree with Steve Middlemiss. Win the midfield and we'll beat them. We've just got to watch for a Rashford wonder performance. Yeah, I mean, let's just hope he scored all those goals. And as a dry spell at the weekend. But Ross, your prediction. I mean, look, here we go. 2-1. Roger Cook 2-1. Tom Dixon 2-1. Michael West 2-0. 2020. Lots of positivity in the chat, which is great. What's your prediction, Ross? Just lost you again there, Ross, but if you can give us your prediction just before we finish the show.
I'm going to be ultra positive and I'm going to go for a 2-0 Newcastle win.
2-0 Newcastle win. You heard it here first from Ross. Great to have you on the show, as always. We'll finish now. His internet is starting to die off. But until next week, Ross, take care, mate.
I thought it was.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone.